Hello and welcome to Walker Tea Review, where I'm looking at teas, and teas, how should I say, teas that come from a certain area can expand, can go outside of that range, and become associated with a name, but still carry on characteristics, and so the world of what a tea is, or should be, or standard characteristics can fluctuate over time. And that can be a positive attribute. Perhaps that tea springs often becomes a new form that is more associated with a new location. But today we've got a tea that crosses some of those barriers or approaches some of those topics, and we'll be looking at, it's a black tea. So I'm going to go ahead and get it started. I've got out my Chinese tea tasting equipment. This is a Chinese style tea, so this should go well together. I've got my tea kettle. My water's been brought to a boil. It's been cooling for a little over a minute, but it's still plenty warm. I've got my teaspoon. I'm going to scoop out enough so that I cover really the bottom, say inch and a half surface area of the bottom of this this bowl here. A little bit more, that looks good. Don't want to put too much, so that looks nice. Set that aside for a moment. I'm going to add my hot water. I want enough water. One, I want to coat the leaves so they swirl around, don't float on top of the water. And I want enough water that when I put my lid on, it creates a seal. A little bit of water above the rim of the lid, so that it's outside of the kind of steeping area there. And that looks good. Set that down and let that steep for a moment. I'll be able to talk about this tea and tell you a little bit more about it. This is from Rishi Tea. This is an organic fair trade Keemun. Okay, and what I'm talking about here is a little bit more information here. 1 ounce is available for $2. Organic, it is certified USD or USDA organic. It is a fair trade product with fair trade certified logo on it as well. And talking about this tea, this is as I said, a Keemun, which is a particular city, town in Anhui province in China. Known for black teas, has been doing it for over 100 years. But the source of this particular Keemun, Keemun being a town or city name, is actually in Hubei province. So it's taken on the style, the characteristics. Perhaps the varietal type of tea was transferred from Anhui province, Keemun area, to Hubei province, their neighboring provinces. Hubei province, by the way, does have some history of black teas. They didn't get to the main big markets, but still a tradition, a respectable tradition of black teas in that area. So, talking about this tea, let's go ahead and give it a sniff. It's worth noting, or talking about comparisons between how does this tea compare with Keemun's from the original location. But first off, a little sniff here of the dry leaf. I'm getting sweet notes. That's the first thing that really hit. It's a sweet, and again, these are kind of stone fruit type. So it does have something kind of a sweet plumminess about it. So that's appealing. I find that with some Keemuns, I can also get a kind of medicinal type of Chinese medicine. So it's got a bit more of a woody, stemmy, even a little bit of a root component in it as well. This one has less of that. Let's go ahead and I'm going to take out a few leaves and look at those and talk about that. Shake out a few so I can get them flat on the spoon. Dominantly, again, as a black tea, it's going to be dominantly an ochre type, seal brown. It's going to be dark browns, reddish browns, grayish browns, could even say. The other thing I'm noting here is you get 10%, 8%, somewhere in there, perhaps. The percentage of you getting golden looking tip components there, bud aspects. You see, and they are short. Actually, all this is fairly short, say less than half an inch. Um, let's see, you've got, again, they're rolled or kind of wiry, rolled or wrapped, twisted along the middle vein of the leaf. And so you've got that darker brown. Smaller, the tips are a little bit smaller than the average regular twisted leaf portion. They are golden. You do see some of the fuzz on them as well. So positive note is that that tippy, that buddy type or tip type note there in the leaf there. Okay. As I'm just going to look through, yes, that looks fairly representative of the bag as a whole. Okay. Now let's go ahead. I'm going to set that aside and give this tea a pour. To do that, using my pitcher, I'm going to tilt my angle my lid over to the side just a little bit. We've had plenty of time to steep. That's a nice rich color already. Give it a quick pour. Yeah, a few leaf pieces got through. That's no big deal. Those will generally rest at the bottom and won't interfere when I start to pour. So let that sit for a while. And I want to talk about this wet leaf. Actually, I still got a few drips coming off of that. But let's give it a smell. One more time. There is something sweet raisiny. I'm getting, my first note was like a raisin cinnamon bun type breakfast. There's a bread component there, a sweetness to it. Again, a little bit of raisiny as well. Plus, if you smell the lid, you get different aromas depending on how and where you smell. I still get some of that plum seed kind of component coming out there as well. So those are the dominant aspects, I would say. If I'm going to have to use my spoon because this is, like I said, chopped pieces, it's not really convenient to tease out a piece here and there. It's just all, it's a pretty big, it's a wet, lumpy, wet mass right now. And as I look at these leaves here, you can still see some of the tip components there. You can still see where pieces have been wrapped and kind of wiry looking still. A lot of them have unfurled so that you get sections of leaves. The colors have stayed fairly similar. There's still a rust red component, moving over towards a little bit more of an ochre type. As it cools, this gets more of a baked bread, biscuit type raisin bread, cinnamon raisin bread component. That's becoming more pronounced actually. Okay. Plum, you may also translate that as plum in your nose, say. But let's move on, and I do want to talk mostly about the liquor here, because I have a fairly rich, deep red, black. You could, as it's called a black tea. This has got more of a rust. Actually, more of a port grape type component. There is kind of almost a deep crimson or purplish aspect to this brown. Okay. As you look through or down into and through, it does seem to have a good brightness to it, and clarity as well. Let's give it a pour. Still some of that baked cinnamon bread notes coming out there in the aroma. A couple of things I'm noticing here. Astringency, it's a mild, gentle tea. That's one of the things that Keemun's, they're not as rough around the edges as a Kenyan or an Assam or some other bolder type of black teas. This one's smoother, gentler. It's beginning, I'm detecting more of that kind of earthy, rooty, Chinese traditional Chinese medicine can be a blend of herbs and roots, and so you get this not one distinct smell or aroma coming off, but you get this just a blend of kind of earthy, rooty type notes, and that's I'm beginning to get some of that here. And so I'm left also with a little bit in the back, the aftertaste, a little bit of sweetness. It's light, gentle. It builds up a little bit of kind of a like a plum type aftertaste, like you finish eating one of those deep purple, sweet plums, and you swallow that. It's the same or similar aftertaste that's there. It's not a strong aftertaste. It's not that intense, but it does tend to linger very mildly, very gently for a while. So the length, the duration is a positive aspect in that sense. But looking at this tea overall, yes, it does have some Keemun components to it. It does have some of that plum. It does have some of that Chinese medicine, earthy, rooty, herby aspect to it. So those are there. However, it is not the most pronounced. It doesn't build up as much of the sweetness in the aftertaste as some can do. Also, the broth, the texture could be a little bit stronger as well in comparison to others. But again, an extended or an aftertaste that has some gentle duration, I would say. Looking at this tea as a whole, I would give this tea an 87. So come back to Walker Tea Review, where you can find out about teas, organic teas, fair trade teas, teas from origin, teas that are branching out into new origins.